phone rang and your IT team said to you everything was down, how prepared are you? Is your business ready? Do you actually know what to do in hour 1, hour 2, day 2, week 2? Have you practiced it? How do you know you are ready? What would it cost you? Minute by minute, day after day, without technology functioning as it needs to today? What if your most sensitive data, your intellectual property, your finances, and your personal private family secrets were stolen and leaked publicly today? Are you ready? Cyber risk is no longer a distant threat. It's an urgent daily reality. Staying ahead of cyber criminals is more than just an IT issue. It's a leadership imperative. This is the story of Elizabeth Hauser and what cyber risk means for business leaders. Come join us as we go behind the scenes of today's most notorious cybercrime. Every time we get online, we enter their world. So we provide true storytelling to raise awareness, interviewing global leaders making an impact and improving our world, translating cybersecurity into everyday language that's practical and easy to understand. We appreciate you making this an award-winning podcast by downloading our episodes on Apple and Spotify and subscribing to our YouTube channel. This is Cybercrime Junkies, and now the show. Well, welcome everybody to Cybercrime Junkies. I'm your host, David Morrow, and in the studio today is Elizabeth Hauser, Director of Cyber Defense at Defense Storm, which provides it's an integrated platform for financial institutions involving cyber risk assessments, governance, security, and fraud solutions, ensuring financial institutions achieve and maintain cyber risk readiness. She manages a security team, security operations, previously worked as and served as senior taxonomist for a group, and worked in criminal investigations division, major crimes unit at the Kings County Sheriff's Office, which we're definitely going to get into, aiding investigations by retrieving and analyzing geographic information systems, GIS, social media and database repositories. Most relevant for me, she is the author and manager of a phenomenal newsletter that I find extremely useful called the Security Intel Bulletin. Elizabeth, welcome to the studio.
Thank you.
Well, we're excited to have you.
I'm excited to be here. What would you like to get started talking about?
Well, first I want to get the newsletter out of the way, because your newsletter honestly was one of the things I wanted to make sure that at my new employer that I was receiving every day. Your newsletter actually has a good synopsis, talks about why it matters to business leaders, and then has the link for anybody that wants to geek out and go farther. So I wanted to ask you, do you have a team doing that? I assume it's not just you.
It is entirely me. So when I started at the company almost 9 years ago, I started in December of 2015. I had been hired as a security engineer, and every day we would come into the office, and there's 3 of us on the team, 2 security engineers and Bob, who was our director at the time. He later became CISO. And we had this ask from marketing to put together this list of articles every day. And it was intended to keep people up to date, but not only customers, but also the employees. And so we would sit around for probably an hour round tabling this conversation over which articles we should put in. And what was really interesting back at that time, 2015, there weren't a lot of great news outlets. So you really had to dig for good bulletin items. And we'd put them together and we'd post them. And where it initially started was we have an internal system that all the customers are subscribed to, and they get sent this email every day with these items. And it really wasn't about till 2 or 3 years ago that we started publishing this externally. So the customers always got it. I call it our oldest service here at Defense Storm, but it is free. It remains free to this day. And for me, yes, I do have, some education in cybersecurity, but I also have a master's of library and information science from the University of Washington. So for me, every morning,
so it's like the librarian and you
Exactly.
came out with the security expert, and then
Yes.
you have this. It's probably why it's so successful.
Yeah,
I mean, I just find it really useful. Like everything that's really happening that somebody should be aware of in cybersecurity is kind of right there. 5 main bullet points, and it kind of changes every day because, as you've seen, when you think about some of the arcs of some of these stories, like you think of Black Cat and how they kind of, were known for some things, and then there was an exit scam, and then there was this, and I'm like, some of these stories, it changes so quick that I'm like, I need to know the latest, and rather than trying to search it through an online search engine and then having to parse and potentially miss something, right? I kind of get your digest and kind of say the whole arc. It's really useful.
Yeah. So every morning I wake up and I get my cup of coffee and I get on the computer. And for me, it's information sharing time. It's storytelling time. And I get to put together my bulletin and I go through all my searches and all the thing that's accumulated from the day before, and I put it together. And it's about an hour-long process from
That's phenomenal.
Time to go from the time it's published.
Well, that's great. And I'll have a link in the show notes, but it's called the Security Intel Bulletin, right? And it is just, it's just really good. I mean,
Thank you.
I really find a lot of value in it. And I always mention it to the CISOs that I work with and things like that. And I'm always shocked when they're like, I saw that and it was good. I just didn't sign up for it. And meanwhile, they're getting all this like noise and all this other stuff that's filled with all this vendor stuff and all this great. It's like, we don't have a lot of time. There's a lot of noise. So we just, you don't have a lot of time to get people's attention. And so it's great that it's in a digest format. It's got great headlines for each one. And then, when it's relevant to you, you can click through and follow up.
Yeah. And you'll find the more technical items tend to be at the bottom. The more leadership, professional
business impact, wider scale society things tend to be at the top, which is great.
Yeah.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that. That's fantastic. So let's talk about that for a second.
Okay.
And that is, why do you think it's so important? Or let me ask it this way. What is the significance of translating what you see in cybersecurity into plain language? Because that's kind of been a mission of this podcast. It's been a mission at my day job, because we're talking to non-technical business leaders.
Absolutely.
Right? And we're saying, there are best practices in cybersecurity. Here's what you're doing. Here's the glaring gaps, right? Let's start with the fact that even though you're located an hour from Wichita, Kansas, and you think that nobody's going to get you, is not relevant, right? It doesn't matter where you geographically are, right? It might be a safer town than an inner city urban area, right? For physical crime, but for cybercrime, so like when you get online, you're entering their world. And so just explaining that, and then explaining some of the controls, you have to explain it in English. It has to be done in plain terms in a sentence or two. And to me, there's great sophistication in that simplicity.
There is, and I think a lot of the problem comes down to relevance. And, working in this industry for as long as I think we've both been in it, people don't like the phrase, but there is a lot of security theater. There's a lot of money floating around in this industry, and how many products can you sell? How many people can you sell it to? More. Is that really solving our problems? But even if it's a salesperson,
when you look at the news, I would argue that it's not.
Yeah,
and I would
I don't
argue
feel great
that
about it. I don't think any of us feel great about it.
No, it's really kind of a sad state of affairs. It's still like the Wild West.
Yeah. And when it comes down to when you can get someone's attention with a story of maybe that's not our company, maybe that's another company in our industry, and you can get someone's attention with that, especially someone who can impact your budget and decision making and drive solutions to fruition, it always helps to have a couple of stories in your pocket of, hey, did you hear about this? Did you hear about this?
Right.
This is how it impacted them. This is how they solved that problem. And to
Yep.
really simplify it. And understandably, there's a lot of business leaders, a lot of decision makers in any enterprise. But even if you take it down to your teenager, there's deepfakes are developing technology. But when you, as a parent, have a security person tell you, hey, you need to be a little more cognizant about what you're posting online about your children, about what you're posting publicly. And hey, are you aware what they can do with deepfake technology now and what they can do if they take your photos?
Well, anybody that watches this show knows that I'm fascinated by deepfakes simply because I've deepfaked myself. And I do a lot of security awareness trainings for organizations, and I will show deepfakes, and I will show deepfake of myself, and people are like, well, that was you. That was just like a Zoom clip, right? And I'm like, no. I go, that was completely, I wasn't wearing that. I didn't say those things.
Yeah.
Right. And it's commercial grade. It's not even the really, really expensive GANs and other levels.
Yeah. But when, I think as adults, we're willing to accept risks. We wouldn't necessarily accept for our children. And I think when you start looking at looking at the problem from the perspective of, you're putting your children at risk, you're putting your parents at risk of, let's look at the real problems in this industry that we're dealing with. Let's have an honest conversation about what the real problems are and what we need to do to solve them.
Yeah. I mean, when we think about it, imagine getting an email from your boss or somebody at your company, and they ask you to do something that is, it involves the disclosing of something that could be harmful or could be worth a lot of money. And so we've all had a lot of training on business email compromise and phishing, and so we don't do that. But then they follow it up with a calendar invite to jump on a Zoom meeting or a Microsoft Teams meeting. And then they get on there and we're talking to them like you and I are talking, although we're in a podcast studio, but it's live and you can ask them questions, right? People have no idea that this is being done today. And then you can go and get all your questions answered, feel better about it, go and execute the request that they made, only to learn later from your real boss that wasn't your boss there, especially if your boss or the people that were asking you to do that have any public, podcasts that they've been on or public speeches that they've given in their industry, right? Because all of that it doesn't take much to take that information and then deepfake somebody. It's really, really scary. And I think we've only seen it for mostly entertainment reasons, right? There's a couple, especially in the financial industry, there's several this year that have happened, but I think we're just at the tip of the iceberg. I think that is going to be something that is going to be far worse and in a higher volume moving forward as that technology advances and as it becomes more democratized.
Yeah. But that's one of the great things about working with financial institutions is it's really emphasized in this industry, the importance of relationships, building trust you do business with, and that's
independent verification, all of that.
Well, and it's just knowing the people, and I've been working with some of the same customers since I started here, and it really knowing who you're working with, trusting who you're working with, and being able to tell if something's not quite right, But that's one of the fun things in this industry. It's a learning journey for sure, but sometimes it just gets exhausting. And then, the pressure for immediate gratification, I need this email, I need it right now. Right. What's interesting, what I find though, is, we run regular phishing campaigns here at the company. We're partnered with KnowBe4, a very, very popular company. I've rarely come
We
across
do the exact same thing for the banks that we serve and the financial institutions. That's exactly right. And people can complain about that platform all you want, but it has raised the baseline of awareness.
Like it's raised awareness.
Yeah, it helps awareness for sure.
But it's always interesting the fish that catch people. And for me, whenever I get a good news email, I have to teach myself now, hey, we're having a social event, sign up here. No. check the banner, check all your typical indicators that it's a phishing campaign. But no, what I love about KnowBe4 is I think they've really tried hard to be different. They have this bright orange logo, they make themselves stick out to make themselves different.
Well, and they've even made it so easy because at a certain level you have like the phishing alert button. It's like they just made it so that we don't even want to make you have to forward the email to your IT. Just press the big button there, right? Like they're really making, and now they have something for kids. I really like what they're doing. Like their heart is in the right place. I've read the book Creating a Security Culture, which was done by two of the
I think I have
people.
a copy of my books right here.
Yeah, it's really
but I have
good.
That one.
Yeah, I really liked it.
Kevin Mitnick was such a great ambassador.
He really was.
Really revolutionary in bringing awareness to this problem. And really making it more popular, more commonplace that we talk about these issues.
Mm-hmm. So, well, he was a good human overall, but fantastic. He also was a very good ambassador for them. Yeah. That's phenomenal. So let's back up. Okay. Where'd you grow up?
Born and raised in South Texas.
Really? I would not have known that had I not done OSINT. I would never have guessed that. And how did you get into the field? Like, was there an event? Was there something? I find so many people it's remarkable to me because the people that I've met in cybersecurity, in the industry in general, and obviously there's a million different ways to get into it and say that you're in cybersecurity, but the people, it's either that traditional path of I was in computers, I got my master's and I followed that path, or it's military, right? I had a military background and then from there I learned some specific skills and got in. Or it's completely like talk to somebody, I was in marketing and I've always really liked this and then I got into it. It's so interesting. So tell the listeners about yours.
So my background my undergrad was actually in zoology at the University of Oklahoma.
Yeah, I saw that, and there was something about like plant. I forget, like what was that? Like you had associates in plant origins or something. What was that?
So it was evolutionary biology. From there, I went to a graduate program at the University of Tennessee for entomology and plant pathology.
That was it.
That's what it was. And so my background was primarily research. Right. Taxonomy, genetics, the development of the relationships between insects, that sort of thing. And then from there, I took a break for a while. And then later on, I was looking at additional programs. And my husband and I were talking and kind of looking at long-term plans. What do we want to do as a couple? Where do we want to see ourselves long-term? And I go, hey, I'd really like to go be a librarian somewhere. And so that's what got me started looking at University of Washington. I was accepted there, and it's a fantastic program. I think it's actually number 2, possibly number 1 in the country at this point for that program. Wow. But it's very popular. And I was accepted there, and I'm going through my coursework, and you're learning about all the other tools you need to run a library. And they were talking about website development, networking, kind of those off the cuff skills that are useful, maybe not primary. And so I'm in this program for University of Washington, and at night I enrolled at a local community college for network engineering. So graduate school.
Just because you saw how modern library is so interconnected with the internet.
Yeah. So this was about 2013, and so I'm wrapping up the program at the University of Washington, and I don't remember what made me look for it, but I was on Seattle City internships, some email, something came out, and it just so happened that I came across this call for.
Well, you clicked on a link. You got an email, and you just clicked away because back then you had no idea.
Back then I wasn't enrolled.
Cybersecurity.
Back then I wasn't enrolled in KnowBe4 security awareness training, and I came across King County Sheriff's Office announcement for internships. And I looked at it and I thought, hey, this could be an interesting use of my education. So I put in. And the next thing I know, I'm being contacted by the Major Crimes Division saying, hey, you have an interesting background. You do a lot of data management. You're in this, community college program. Would you like to come help help our detectives with their investigations.
Yeah, transferable skills.
Yeah, and it was just kind of one of those fluke things. You take a chance, someone said yes. And so
Yeah.
I said I'd be happy to come down.
So
And
what
at
type
that
of cases did you work on there?
So major crimes is homicide,
Yeah.
theft, all the big cases, violent crimes. So
And
you're
you were analyzing like geosync? Were you doing like geosync for them? Like where they were located or where they pinged off of cell towers, or what was the investigation? Because on
so
TV we see it in like 20 minutes and they capture it all and they're like, well, we're able to find this, this, and this, even though like 6 weeks worth of work went into that. But
mhm.
we see it in like 15 minutes.
Yeah, so strangely enough, not everyone really enjoys working in spreadsheets and data
Mm,
collection and mining data. And so, yeah,
that is true.
one of the things I would do, and this was back in 2013, so the tools have developed a
Mm,
lot since then,
yeah.
is they would get these massive reports and I would go through and build 50, 60, 100-page reports where I'm screenshotting take by take, suspect activity as they're moving around the city and lining up where people are. And so I would help
Uh,
screenshot these reports, build these reports. I'd send them off to detectives so they're not investing their time building these play-by-play reports. So that would be one of the things I would do. Another thing I would also help them do is, I don't know if you remember Facebook back then, but the search capabilities on Facebook was very different. And I learned a lot from Michael Bazzell and his books. But you used to be able to search Facebook by what people were commenting on. Just there was a lot
that's
more.
right.
You remember that? And
That's
just
right.
you had all these filtering options, how you could see where they're posting photos, what they're commenting on. It was wide open back then.
And for
And
listeners, Michael Bazzell is he's really like one of the fixers in Hollywood who's able to create the privacy for a lot of celebrities, right?
yeah,
He's phenomenal. I have his book on my shelf here, but
yeah,
he's got, and we had Michelle Kahn on who used to work with Michael.
yeah,
And it's just so fascinating how, I mean, Michael really takes it to an extreme where he's got like, I mean, a lot of regular folks would be like, well, that's a lot. I've got to like build my own VM, my own virtual machine at home and things like that. But a lot of the other ideas are very practical that anybody can do
yeah,
without much technical knowledge. But it's so helpful to allow yourself to post on social media safely and protect yourself.
yeah. So, but he's definitely a master of his craft, and I learned a lot from his
So good.
publications.
Yeah.
And then
So
Facebook
good.
changed. And I
Mm-hmm.
remember that day of, it for me, I don't want to say the world changed overnight, but it was a definite change in how OSINT was done on Facebook.
Oh,
The
yeah.
day that Facebook changed those filters. So I
Did
remember
they
the post.
announce when they changed it? Did they, did it have, this was, they changed it even before any of like the Cambridge Analytica stuff or any of
Yeah,
that. Like it
yeah.
happened early on, kind of.
They alluded to
I
the
don't,
changes. I don't remember a definite. We're making modifications to our platform, more information to come. But frankly,
uh,
Michael Bazzell was far more transparent. Of there has been a major shift here. There's going to be
yeah,
because he had all these search capabilities on a website, and you'd go through
right.
his trainings, and that rendered that basically inoperable.
Wow.
So yeah, it was quite the change overnight.
Holy cow.
I'm not saying necessarily a bad change, but
No.
it was always fun to help the detectives on their cases and being able to find photos and comments of where suspects were at
Well, it
right
really
before
gets back
something
to
happened.
intent, right? Like
Yeah.
good intent, like law enforcement looking to capture
Mm-hmm.
people that have bad intent, right? It was a helpful tool.
Yeah.
Those with bad intent could take advantage of innocence, right?
Mm-hmm.
By stalking and finding a lot of things, which
Yeah.
is probably
At
some of the
at
intent
the same
behind the
time, when you think
change.
about all the things you're commenting on and all the just
Yeah.
the relationship with Facebook was so different back then.
Yeah.
Do we really want do we really want that much of our lives accessible to the general public if you're not securing your privacy settings?
Right.
So in the end, it was probably for the better. At the same time, it made OSINT investigations a little more challenging.
So that begs the question then, in today's configuration of Facebook, Instagram, things like that, what would be best practices that you would recommend for parents to tell their teenagers to do, or that even individuals should be doing for themselves? Adjust the privacy settings.
Are any of us really that excited to be on Facebook anymore? I mean,
I don't know that anybody uses it, so I'm just saying if any listeners still use it, I don't know.
Instagram.
I mean, Instagram, I think more the people that run in my circles, it's more Instagram perhaps than that. Yeah. I'm older though, so there's not even that many on Instagram. But I think that like they'll scroll through Instagram because it helps them use Canva and PowerPoint better, like usually, or find good restaurants.
I got access to Facebook back when they were still limiting it to college students. So that dates me a little bit. Yeah. But, it was limited to college students. Mm-hmm. Also, I had MySpace. But, anymore, it was at a point, and I remember we would all used to complain, people just keep posting photos of their babies and, photos of their food. And, that was when Facebook started. That was also back before smartphones. So you weren't always carrying a camera with you. Right. But now it's like, there's so many ads. There's someone telling me all the problems I have so they can sell me a solution. Right. And it's just so loaded with marketing.
And it's so political too. And I have yet to meet a human being that has seen a political post and then changed their political views, right? Yeah, so what's the point? You're not convincing anybody.
So the question is, what value are these services providing anymore? Because fortunately, one of the lessons I learned at the University of Washington at the iSchool was if you're not paying for product, then you are the product.
Right.
And
which we've talked about many times on this podcast, because when an app is free, then you are the product, because it is your search history that is being monitored and captioned as the reason why you will look at something and then later on start to see ads for it, because it's all being tracked.
Yeah, and it's your time that's getting stolen by all these applications of scrolling. I don't want to call it doom scrolling, because I have a genuine interest in what's going on in my friends and family's lives. And it's like, bring on all the baby and dog photos you can post, because I'm tired of seeing political ads, and I'm tired of, seeing marketing ads. So just deliver the good information. But that's not the case anymore. So we're burning our time being sold stuff and being sold ideas.
So let me ask you this. The rise in generative AI, AI has been around for so long. Machine learning has been part of systems for so long. Now, clearly, every product is made of AI, right? Everybody has said there is AI. Like I make the pens, I make the chains that connect the pen to the countertop at the bank. It's AI infused. And I'm like, what? How in the world are you making that claim? But there clearly has been a massive shift in volume and some of the types of attacks. At least social engineering seems like some things have been cleaned up, which makes it more risky for us. What are you seeing? What is your team seeing in terms of some of the changes or some of the things that businesses now have to be aware of versus before? It wasn't a very clear question, but do you kind of know the gist of what I'm trying to dig at?
There's the, I don't want to call it fear mongering, but there's definite, here's a question for you. When was the first time, thinking back throughout your lifespan, when was the first time you really became aware of artificial intelligence? For me, it was the Terminator movies.
I was going to say it was when I was a kid. Yeah, it was probably Terminator movies. It was probably the fact that a machine can generate something on its own without us plugging it in at that moment. It's something that we plugged in before, right? We plugged in certain coding, and then all of a sudden it just starts working on its own.
Yeah. Were any of those memories good memories?
Well, they were cool. They might have been cool memories. Yeah. I was a kid. I was a boy. So things blowing up were great memories. Oh, yeah. Like Science explosions and fast cars and all that is always cool to us. Yeah. But no, not necessarily a positive. It was more dystopian view.
So we're walking into application with a biased understanding of it.
Correct.
And we have all these great expectations of it. If that's what the Terminator can do, then what can this vendor do? We're working with very exaggerated understandings and very misplaced understandings of what this technology is capable of. But, there's a lot of great headlines about that. I'm sure you've seen that in my daily bulletins.
Oh, yeah.
But
Absolutely.
I think the trend I'm seeing is, okay, it's here. Where's the value?
Right.
We're admiring this problem. What problem is this really solving? And
from a rudimentary automated standpoint, to me, it's like word processing compared to typewriting. Like I see it almost as a generational advancement, like the automobile versus the horse carriage. And everybody's worried about jobs getting replaced. And clearly that will happen, but other jobs are going to be formed. I mean, we lost a lot of horse-drawn carriage mechanics back then, but we burgeoned an entire industry of auto designers and automobile industry, right? Yeah. So, I think the positive will economically. I think the positive will outweigh the negative, but maybe I'm just an eternal optimist.
Well, to point out what you're saying there, everyone said the same thing about ATMs. ATMs
Correct.
are going to render banking tellers irrelevant.
Right.
And that has
banks
been,
are going to shut down. Banks are going to shut down.
And now I hear more and more, I hear people complain, where are the people? I want someone to actually help me with my problems, not give me a push button menu.
Yeah, because I'm giving my life savings into this brand. Like I want to talk to somebody.
Yeah. Back to the trust aspect of the financial vertical. But to go back to your question of where do I see this impacting the industry? We're getting a lot more compliance requests from customers. People are aware of that and people want to know where to look at for problems. So from our customer base, we're getting more requests of what products are you using, our dear vendor, our lovely vendor, of where is AI in the products you're helping your people, perform services for us. We're getting a lot of those.
Interesting.
So
because it's that third party risk, right?
Yeah.
I mean, rudimentary, we saw that back in the day from I think it was the Target breach, where the Target breach didn't happen from Target. They had FireEye. They had a whole team, right? It didn't even happen from them. It happened from their HVAC vendor.
Yeah.
And so you're like, that's really important. It's such a basic, fundamental story to understand.
Software supply chain issues. And you read the reports as much as I do. It's usually not you finding out you've been breached. It's someone else coming forward with your data saying, hey, I think you have a problem here. So there is that. So that gives me hope that from a compliance governance perspective, that's getting a little more under control. I think from, selling solutions, being sold solutions, investigating solutions, everyone's just tired of the marketing hype. And, the constant repurposing of buzzwords. Yeah, I'm sure you've seen this. You've been working here a long time. Single pane of glass. It's almost like buzzword bingo. I
was going to say, Danny at Audience First always goes to Black Hat and she does the marketing research and she's got the buzzword bingo. Like, how often do we see this phrase or this phrase? And it just gets down to fundamental truth in advertising, right? Like this, whenever we see, and that's part of the issue in the industry is the over promise and under deliver from kind of one shop vendors, right? It's a startup that's got a product. If you buy this box or if you subscribe to this SaaS program, you will not need anything else. And I'm like, there's nothing. Like, so long as people aren't involved, maybe. But as soon as you throw a human element into it, there's a lot of different layers that are needed. I mean, you need a lot of things.
I think what's going to win in this industry is people are getting smarter. People are learning to ask better questions. And I think the sooner that you can explain your product simply, what it does, what problems it solves, how potential customers can use it, and where the value is, the sooner you'll make a sale. But it's always interesting when you look at marketing publications of, are they really using AI, or are they just talking about AI to kind of,
Right.
exploit the hype, but are they really using it as it's intended to be used?
Right.
So yeah, it's cybersecurity already demands a lot of education, and now we're putting in a whole new layer on top of that.
Absolutely.
It's a problem.
Well, and I think that, I mean, from a practical knowledge worker base, I think AI has some wonderful capabilities. I
Absolutely.
mean, the ability to take a large amount of copious notes and all of that and summarize it and identify the key salient points, or identify like what was really said from somebody, or being able to search, right, volumes of various meetings and notes and being able to identify at what point did they mention this.
Mm-hmm.
Manually, that would take hours and hours and hours of work, but with AI it can be done in a matter of seconds or minutes, and that's really useful, right? Because then you can take, data driven action upon it. So that sense, it's very practical.
I love
But
that aspect of, because I take copious notes, and sometimes you
mhm,
just need the bottom line. And I love that aspect of being able to take a Word document, simplify this paper.
yeah,
And it can do it in it'll produce a 2 or 3 sentence statement, and it sums it
and
up.
it
No,
does
it
pretty
saves
good
so much time.
job.
It
Like in
does.
general, it's fairly accurate. I mean, there's always some hallucinations, and we've seen it. You've had it in your newsletter, but uh like the attorneys in New York who like went to court, and I'm a like 30 years ago I was a trial lawyer. I like that would have been me. I'm just telling you. I'd be like, I would have been arguing about Johnson versus Westerfield and talking about it and blah blah blah, and there's no
Yeah.
case.
Yeah.
It's made up, like AI created it, and you're like, we didn't check that. I'd be looking back at the law clerks going, guys, we didn't check this, like
Yeah.
nobody verified that this wasn't real. And then meanwhile your license is on the line and the judge is sanctioning you, and you're like, I feel sorry.
Yeah. But
Like,
another
but you can see
fascinating.
how they got swept up in it,
Oh
right?
yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
yeah.
So one of the other things I do at the company is I help run the platform support team.
Mm,
So we are full on every day helping customers with their issues. And caretaker fatigue is a problem even in customer
certainly.
support teams. But
Yeah.
one of the other great aspects of these tools that I like is you put in a prompt of, I need to tell a customer no, but I need to be really empathetic. And it'll
Yeah.
generate a response where it can do the emotional labor of
Mm-hmm.
gently letting a customer down, or saying yes full on. But that's another great aspect of these
And
tools.
that's a really good point, right?
Yeah.
Letting it, and that's the sad state of our affairs, right? Like letting a machine make us more human.
Yeah.
Like I have to tell them, no, can you please do it in a more human way so that I'm more gentle and caring,
I
because
would
I'm
say more
just friggin'
empathetic.
busy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just
Yeah.
busy. And if I just snap at them, the thing that's going to come out of my mouth is, no, you can't do that.
Yeah.
Next issue. And you don't want that, because
No.
that really isn't your intent.
Yeah.
So yeah, leveraging artificial intelligence to
It's
be more
it's a
human
big
is
help.
interesting
Yeah.
concept.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's amazing. So in terms of the horizon and what do you think is coming, based on you guys ingest so much information and you do an excellent job of summarizing it in business terms. I use that phrase business terms, but I mean just like English. It's just you summarize it and it's like the actual impact of for what it means for humans. And so what, I know nobody can predict the future clearly, but what are you seeing as some of the major challenges or some of the major things we're going to start to see?
The tried and true ways, password reuse,
Mm-hmm.
credential theft. That's still going to be a problem, and where it's really
What
going to make
is
a
the
difference.
deal with password reuse?
We're
Like,
lazy. We're lazy. We
what
use
is
the
the
same
deal?
passwords
Like,
over and over.
everybody keeps doing it. Like, I talk to people all the time about it. It's
Mm-hmm.
such a basic thing. Everybody's been saying the same thing for
Yeah.
years, literally for decades. And yet I still get people that come up to me at the security awareness things going, I've got a great password. I took your advice. I've got a great password. I use it on everything. And I'm like, hang on. Like, did you not pay attention? Like, I said that's important for one of them, but don't reuse it, right? Like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
And it's such a problem, because if they're using it, like, clearly, for those who are listening who are reusing passwords, which is probably 80% of everybody listening,
probably 95,
probably 85, 90. Like, the issue with that is you're going to use that on some app or some platform that gets breached, right? And then instantly it's for sale on the dark web, or it's out there. And then they know your email, that great password, and they know that you reuse your passwords. So they will go spray that all over the place. And then they will be you online. And that is a scary thing. Nobody wants somebody else being them.
Yeah. But we have solutions at the enterprise level. We have Zero Trust. We have single sign-on that render passwords unnecessary. But the reality is a lot of, commercial application of it still requires login and password. And it's you have all these different vendors, and you get into a rush. You want something, the immediate gratification of finding something really cool Instagram has pushed at you. You have to have it now. Right. You create an account, you put in your credit card information. And fortunately, it's getting better with Apple Pay. There are other options out there.
It is.
But a lot of them still are at that very foundational, put your name in, put your credit card information in, email, password, and there it goes. So
absolutely, it's
a problem.
What do you like? A lot of the stories that you have in your newsletter, you talk about, and a lot because they're in the news. It seems that nation states, or not just the popular cybercrime gangs that a lot of people in the industry are familiar with, the Lockbits, the Black Matters of the world, etc. But there seems to be quite a lot of nation state attacks going after what seems to be not necessarily industries or even enterprise organizations. They seem to be even going after that mid-level, mid-market group of the SMBs, and that's very concerning. What are you seeing? Are you seeing trends? Are you seeing anything? Any insight you can share on that?
If there is a trend, I would say more often than not, they're following the money. They're targeting SMBs because their security postures are not as great as other, more informed, better budgeted enterprises out there. And, there's a lot of speculation around the availability of security talent. I'm sure you've seen those articles. Do we really have 20 million security jobs, job openings?
Well, the data says so. I don't find it so. I mean,
are you looking at the job market?
I do find a million examples of entry level ads, and then they require a CISSP and 5 years of managing a SOC. That's not an entry level job.
That is not
by anybody's standards.
A lot of people say cybersecurity is not an entry level job, and that's a whole nother podcast.
Well, it is, because then you get into the debate of should it even be, right? Should it really be? Because when you're talking about protecting the most critical aspect of any organization, is that something that should be left in the hands of an entry level person, right? Or should that be done through apprenticeship and years of experience, etc.?
And do we even have a infrastructure in place to develop these people?
Right.
Is that accurately reflect our educational system, our trade system? But going back to SMBs, I think I'm all for people starting their own businesses, and it's phenomenal what people can build in this country. At the same time, is hiring a cybersecurity expert really at the top of the line for these business plans. And, you're going to have people going, hey, I can manage this on my Mac. We have a few PCs, and are we breaking down, tactful things they can do to manage this on their own? Or do they just rely on their kind of intrinsic know-how? This is what they taught us in school. Haha, passwords. Yeah, I guess we can take that seriously next week. And then they have something, quite legitimate, quite credible built. And then it all goes up in flames because they missed one thing.
That to me is like an American tragedy.
Yeah.
Because I come from a family where my father came from nothing, built up a small business, employed over 150 people, right? And it was a while ago, and it was before the internet. But I know that if my dad was still alive, I'd be arguing with him about it, because he'd be like, I don't want to spend money on that. I want to spend money on growing the brand. Yeah. And I would debate, because we had similar talks, not about cybersecurity, but back then, because it's about protecting that brand. Like if you're not doing that, and some of it is just awareness. Some of it is, are they even aware that they're flying their plane without landing gear, or that they're heading for a mountain? I don't know that a lot of them even are aware of it. Yeah. Right? But like they don't think it's going to happen to them. They think that their IT person has got all the security handled, right? Yeah. And that's scary. Yeah. Because I don't want harm to come from them. Because when an SMB goes down or has a massive attack, and we've been involved in helping organizations like that, I'm telling you, they see that their kids' college goes away, their house is tied to this. Like, it's a very personal event. Yeah. And that to me is the most tragic aspect of all this.
Well, and I think the problem we need to address of, are we really giving our kids, are we giving primary high school students the tools they need to survive in a digital society? Should we be looking, we always talk about, we're not teaching our kids to be financially literate in high school. They should be taught how to read bank budgets, how to set a budget. Are they monitoring their transactions in their accounts? I've heard a lot of great arguments of, we need to start teaching cybersecurity skills like we do hygiene, like basic, personal health.
Absolutely.
If our worlds are going to be, completely encompassed in digital, in technologies of this nature, are we really preparing people to be successful throughout their lives?
Correct.
So
yeah, that's a great question. I mean, that's a great question to kind of wrap this up on, because I think that raises like the core issue that we're all facing. And it's a similar thing for parenting too. Like, so often when we ever mention, freezing your credit is a really good practice. Everybody should be doing this, and freezing your children's credit. First of all, most people I know don't even freeze their credit, let alone have they even thought of freezing their children's credit. And I'm like, but then I have people on this show like Brett Johnson, who's like, I know we loved those people back in the day when he was head of a cybercrime group, because he'll say, because we could use their identity for 10 years before their parents would ever check their credit. Right? And it's so scary, and it's free. It's something that if we just took the 20 minutes to do it, 4 years of headaches would go away, right? And that affects the ability to work. It affects your credit. It affects your ability to get apartments and housing and cars and all of that. And it's really remarkable. Well, Elizabeth, thank you so much for being on. Is there anything? We'll have a link to Defense Storm as well. You guys do remarkable work there. I definitely want to have a link to your newsletter, because it is something that, for business leaders and for people that aren't technical, I love it, because while I geek out a lot, I've shared it with a lot of people that don't geek out in cybersecurity, but that really find value in it, because they're like, I like it because it simplifies all this noise. They'll see 50 articles and they'll just assume there's a billion breaches, but really there's like 3 or 4 main things going on. Here's what it means, and here's a life lesson to learn in each one. It's really remarkable.
Go sign up for your free credit monitoring, because you're probably in it.
And freeze your credit, folks, because we're just getting started. And one thing you don't advertise that your newsletter is AI infused or anything like that. I was expecting to see something. I was starting to see that
human crafted every day.
Yeah, I was starting to see that on like newsletters, and I'm like, well, that's the last thing I want to read. Because whenever I read something and it's like, in this digital age, comma, I'm like, as soon as I see that, I know AI wrote
Ever
it.
evolving.
Right?
Yeah.
Yes. The ever evolving landscape. I'm like, would you stop? Don't, like a LinkedIn post, people are like, in the ever evolving landscape. And I'm like, please stop. I don't want to see my LinkedIn thread have a bunch of AI generated stuff. And the reason is, I don't mean that there won't be value in that post, but it means that you literally spent like 2 seconds putting that post together. And it's like, then it's not worth my time to spend 2 minutes to read something that you spent like 15 seconds creating.
Yeah.
You know?
Absolutely.
Well, thank you. So keep up the good work.
Thank you.
I wish you the absolute best. Thank you so much for joining. Great conversation.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you. Well, that wraps this up. Thank you for joining us. We hope you enjoyed our episode. The next one is coming right up. We appreciate you making this an award-winning podcast and downloading on Apple and Spotify and subscribing to our YouTube channel. This is Cybercrime Junkies, and we thank you for watching.